Hello folks, I'm John Myrie and welcome to the Wisconsin Northland Outdoors. On this week's show, we have tips and reports for you from Jarrett McCarthy down at Hayward Bait and Bottle, and then we talk summer bass fishing with pro angler and fishing guide BRO Brosdahl. Lots to cover on this week's show, all coming up right after these messages.
You want to get outdoors, you want to have some fun.
There are still plenty of epic fishing adventures to have this year, but they rely on having the right boat. That's where Hayward Power Sports comes in. We have an awesome selection of new Lund boats built by fishermen for fishermen for the last 75 years, and no boat retains their value better. Or check out a Tracker, America's #1 selling fishing boat. Both brands are powered by Mercury outboards, rigged and ready. Don't miss another day of fishing. See us at Hayward Power Sports, just 10 minutes east of Hayward on Highway 77.
The Hayward Lakes Visitors and Convention Bureau in Sawyer County, Wisconsin welcomes you to our Northwoods hometown. No matter the season, no matter the activity, you'll always be surrounded by our great outdoors. What more could you ask for in a vacation destination? Woods, waters, world-class events. Contact us for information on lodging, dining, attractions, events, trail conditions, and more. Order your free vacation guide and start planning your getaway today. Visit us at haywardlakes.com or call 1-800-724-2992.
Riding along in my automobile.
Bumping into things unexpectedly? Make your first choice for collision repair. Ernie's Auto Body, featuring the most advanced collision repair facility in Northwest Wisconsin. With a state-of-the-art spray, bake down, draft paint booth for that better-than-new finish, laser technology for precision frame alignment, loaner cars available, computerized estimates, written guarantees, and documented unmatched customer service, the clear choice is Ernie's Auto Body, south of Hayward on Highway 63 and Nursery Road, where quality is no accident.
Lynn's Custom Meats and Catering welcomes you to stop by for their great lunch menu. And while you're there, Lynn's also has a great selection of custom cut meats and sausages, as well as many varieties of snack sticks, jerky, fresh cheese curds, and much more. Lynn's is open Mondays through Fridays from 9 to 5:30 and 9 to 4 on Saturdays. Lynn's Custom Meats and Catering in Hayward.
Today, anglers fish longer. Today, anglers fish harder. Today, anglers rely more than ever on their electronics. It all comes down to catching more fish, and today, anglers rely on Amped Outdoors lithium batteries, period. Visit ampedoutdoors.com today to power your outdoor experience.
We're recording this week down at Hayward Bait and Bottle. I got Jarrett McCarthy in here. And Jarrett, we had to warm up, then a cool down, and warm up, and a cool down. It's been just a cycle all so far this year.
Yeah, a little bit of a cool down is nice. No, it's nice to get out on the water and not, go through a whole bunch of sweat and what have you, and, enjoy being out on the boat with the cooler weather.
And it did take the water temperatures from that 80 degree and even over 80 on some lakes down in that low to mid 70s and around mid 70s, which doesn't, it's good for the musky fishing to keep that hot water away.
Absolutely. It's a lot safer, yeah. Between a couple of lakes I've been out on over the last week, I think I saw 73 is like the average temperature. But for guys that are getting out fishing for muskies right now, it's definitely a lot safer for those mid-70 temperatures for releasing fish and catching them and, doing the little bit of handling that you are just to make sure those fish get back and live to fight another day.
Yeah, that's a big point. We should just make a quick point is make sure, I know everybody wants pictures, but keep the pictures to a minimum, especially if it's hot out, to get the fishing. Best thing, don't even take it out of the water. Just, lean over the side of the boat, get a shot alongside of the boat, and quick measurement in the water, and release it.
Yeah, the least you can do is just have a plan. When you got the fish at both sides or in the net or what have you, have your camera guy on board, just know what you're going to do. Say, hey, I'm going to pull this fish out. We're going to take a picture or two. We're going to have this fish back in the water, just so there's no fumbling. We don't drop the fish, and, it's safe to fight another day.
Been some really nice muskies caught, too, this year.
Yeah, yep. Seen a whole bunch in the mid-40s. Haven't really seen anything monstrous yet, but usually those monsters show up in the fall.
Yeah. Let's talk about the walleye fishing a little bit. There's still people out there walleye fishing, and they're getting walleyes. They do all summer long. It just gets a little bit more of a shorter bite window, it seems like.
Yeah, yep. Those bite windows are key during the morning and during the evening hours. And usually when that sun hits trees, that light bulb turns on. And for guys that are out doing it all day, a lot of guys are out there trolling. They're looking for those couple of active fish that are kind of scattered to the wind in the lakes.
And trolling's not that hard with crawler harnesses. I mean, most electric trolling motors now, if you got one on the boat, a bow mount, you can set the speed at, like the Minnecotas have that cruise control. You can set the speed at 3/4 of a mile an hour or 1 mile an hour, or just guesstimate getting your GPS will show you that on your depth finder too. And, it doesn't take much. I mean, just my rule of thumb is basically a 1 ounce bead chain sinker 45 feet back on a 5-foot crawler harness. You could be running about where you should be pretty close.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the actual fishing part of it isn't that hard. It's just getting comfortable, holding a rod in your hand and the boat moving at the same time. So, as soon as you get into it, you're 15, 20 minutes in, you've got a pretty good feel, and it's a really effective way to get out and catch and find fish.
Yep. And don't overlook trolling crankbaits, too, because crankbaits work really good. And, you can get baits that run any depth you want. There's apps that you can get on your phone that'll tell you the depths. And you got things like snap weights that you have here. You can get them to snap on the line to get to any bait to any almost depth you want.
Absolutely. Trolling is another way to test out a whole bunch of colors in your tackle box, for baits that you've never had a chance to use or could never cast that many times, trolling it over schools of fish, with your rod sitting in a rod holder. Great way to see what they're actually interested in.
Yeah, you can do it old school, just throw it out behind the boat and just kind of figure out, hope it's running the right depth, or you can take it to a scientific level and, really dial it in.
Absolutely. As we say here in the shop, fishing is as simple or as complicated as you want to make it.
Let's talk about the panfish out there. I know that's your go-to thing. You like to go after the panfish. What's going on there?
The panfish are kind of all over the place. Last week I was out on a couple of lakes and I was finding gills, in 5 to 8 feet of water and some really thick, heavy vegetation. They're probably 2-3 weeks, post spawn or what have you, so they're out there feeding, ready to roll. Some of the crappies that I've been seeing are anywhere from 10 to 15 feet. They're holding really tight structure, and they're waiting for those key times of day too, just like the walleyes and every other fish. As soon as that sun hits trees, those fish will emerge from the weeds or come off those structures to come up and hit a bait.
I know on the Chippewa flowage is where I've been most of the time, and down there, the crappies seem to have moved out the deeper bog structure and out to the cribs and stuff in a lot of places. But the bluegills, you're finding them out in deep water in that bog structure and cribs, and you're also finding them up in 5, 6, 7 feet of water in real thick milfoil and weed beds.
Yep. I mean, there are fish populations that do a little bit of both. You'll have a population that sits in the weeds all summer. You'll have a population that wants to go out and roam deep water. All fish don't do the exact same things, which is nice for fishermen because there's going to be pods of fish all over the place, and you don't need to be hunkered down to a specific spot or pattern. So definitely a good way to get out there and find some fish. Just stay mobile.
Interesting you said that, because I can remember a radio interview I done years ago with Al Lindner. He said, the fish, there are two different fish, a population of fish doing two different things. There's shallower ones and you got deeper ones, and it's not that they're traveling back and forth.
Yep, exactly. Hey, you want to be at the rock pile in, about 20 minutes? Yeah, we're going to meet Jim over there.
You bet. How about the bass fishing? The bass fishing is a great thing for summer guys out there want to get out after bass. That's been pretty good.
Bass has been really good, whether it be smallies or largies. Seeing a lot of good bites on topwaters right now, for the guys that like pitching plastics. Your Ned rigs, your Senko baits, everything like that. Everything's producing fish. And, there are still some fish up really shallow, too, for guys that want to go, flip lily pads and weeds with frogs and, heavy rigs. So a lot of guys doing pretty well on bass right now.
Yeah, and I'll give a good tip there. If you're fishing anything, a plastic worm, or you're fishing a wacky rig worm or a Ned rig, slow down. Most people fish it way too fast. I have to force myself to fish that slow.
Yep, and I do the same thing when I'm fishing panfish. Sometimes you almost have to watch how fast you're reeling just to tell yourself to slow it down. And once you finally find the cadence, sometimes it is really fast. Sometimes it is painfully slow, but as soon as you find the right cadence, game on.
Largemouth, still a lot of them in the weeds yet. In shallower water, it seems most of the smallmouth, except on some of the flowages, like the Chippewa flowage and that. The smallmouths have moved deeper.
Yeah, smallmouth are out on some of those rock humps and, some of those deep weed patterns. And, yeah, those largemouth, like we were saying earlier, a lot of fish do different things. And there'll be a handful of those bass that stay up shallow all year, and there'll be a handful that move out to that deeper structure.
Yeah. good thing for people up here in the summer if they're up here on vacation. Spend your evening hours, morning hours, and evening hours going after your walleyes, and spend your daytime going after bass or panfish and catch fish all day long.
Either way, spend it fishing.
How about pike? I mean, that's something we should talk about. There's a ton of them up here.
There's a ton of them, and the pike bite's been really good lately. We've seen some really nice fish coming out this year, and we're starting to see, after they changed the limits, a lot more people starting to keep pike, and they're a great table fare item. We've got a lot of people in here that swear that pike tastes a lot better than walleye, especially if you know how to fillet it correctly and get those extra wide bones out. But the DNR is encouraging anglers to take pike out of some of these systems just to improve the fishery. So by all means, take some pike out, pickle them, fry them, throw them in the deep fryer, whatever it is.
Yep. And Jarrett, down here at the shop, you guys are geared up. You got just about everything and anything you might need to catch any fish that swims up here.
And if we don't, we'll order it for you.
Jarrett, I want to thank you for taking the time here. I know you don't get a chance to get out as much as you want to get out, I know.
I don't think there is a chance for me to get out as much as I want to. You have no idea how much I want to get out.
Me too. Anyway, thanks, Jarrett.
Thanks, John.
Well, folks, we need to take a break right now and hear from some of the fine sponsors that make this show possible every week. When we come back, we'll be talking to pro angler and fishing guide BRO Brosdahl about bass fishing. So stay tuned. We'll be back right after these messages. Hayward Bait and Bottle is your one-stop for the Hayward area's largest selection of rods, reels, lures, fishing electronics, boating supplies, and they've now expanded their selection of soft plastic bass and walleye baits. No matter what you're fishing for, at Hayward Bait and Bottle, you'll find everything you'll need for a successful season. And while you're there, in their bottle shop, you'll find a full selection of beer, wine, and liquor, too. And also, don't forget, now they carry Shoremaster docks, lifts, and accessories at Hayward Bait and Bottle. There's no time like the present to explore Hayward, Wisconsin, one of the Midwest's most popular vacation destinations. With crystal clear lakes for water sports and fishing, miles of trails for riding snowmobiles, ATVs, cross-country skiing, hiking, and mountain biking, this area is buzzing with activity year-round. Combined with charming local shops and a variety of Northwoods dining options, Hayward is certain to offer both adventure and relaxation for everyone. Plan your trip today and find everything you need on the Hayward Area Chamber of Commerce website. From events and attractions to local dining, shopping, and lodging, visit haywardareachamber.com and start your next adventure now. Big fish stories come to life at the Freshwater Fishing Hall of Fame. The world's largest shrine to freshwater anglers boasts a 4.5-story tall walk-through muskie that's a half a city block long. It's like taking a peek into Granddad's old tackle box with thousands of mounted fish, antique outboard motors, and historical sport fishing artifacts. Stop in and take a chance on our 50-50 cash raffle. You could walk away with a pile of cash. See the big ones that didn't get away at the Freshwater Fishing Hall of Fame, Highways 27 and B in Hayward. Open daily, including Sundays, through October 31st at 9:30 a.m.
Looking to get more done and unlock more adventures this summer? It's time for a new side-by-side or ATV, and Hayward Power Sports has some great Can-Am summer deals on now. This is your chance to find your new ride and get up to $3,500 off or 0.99 financing for 36 months on select 2025 models. The Can-Am Defender is the perfect utility side-by-side that's extra tough on the worksite or for projects around your property. Can-Am Maverick is the high-performance machine that delivers an unrivaled adrenaline surge. Or get the best of work and play with the ultimate crossover, the Can-Am Commander. Maybe you prefer a traditional Can-Am ATV. If so, there are none that match the performance of a Can-Am Outlander ATV. You deserve a machine that's ready to explore, work, and play as hard as you do. And with up to $3,500 off or 0.99 financing for 36 months, now's the time to make it happen. Take home a Can-Am today from Hayward Power Sports, just 10 minutes east of Hayward on Highway 77.
Offer ends August 31st, 2025. Certain conditions apply. See dealer for details.
Welcome back to another segment of this week's Wisconsin Northland Outdoors, and this part of the show is brought to you by the Hayward Lakes Visitor and Convention Bureau. For more information on lodging and vacationing here in the Hayward Lakes area, check out their website at haywardlakes.com. Well, folks, one of the people I get on here from time to time is pro angler and fishing guide Brian BRO Brosdahl. I had a chance to talk to Bro on the phone about bass fishing with some great tips and information. Bro, I know one of the things that you seem to get after once in a while over there is the smallmouth bass, and that's getting to be a increasing thing as far as interest in fishing for them all across the northern part of the states here.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. And the smallmouth bass are really a little treasure for northern Wisconsin, northern Minnesota, because, people basically most people fish for the eater walleye or panfish, something that they can put on a stringer. And smallmouth bass are just a fighter fish. They're a fighter fish that jumps, and people visiting the area are surprised how good the bass fishing is up north. That's phenomenal because they were basically untouched for years, and the lake populations are doing well. Rusty crayfish are on the rise in our area. They do rise and fall and sometimes disappear, but right now they're gorging on them and they're getting huge. Big smallmouth bass are a hit.
Well, crayfish are a big thing when it comes to forage on them, and the rusty crays, we've seen it over here. We went through a cycle where we still got some world-class fisheries, but you had a ton of those rusty crays out there. You had a bunch of really big smallmouth too, because they just feast on them things, I think.
Absolutely. And if some of our biggest smallmouth bass lakes have rusties, and it's really created that. Plus, rusty crayfish create some big perch in lakes over here that have rusty crayfish. All those lakes have big perch and big smallmouth bass. So it's a good protein. It's a good forage for them. And they do molt where they lose their shell. They walk right out of their shell. And so the fish will go around and check to see if it is one of those, because literally when they lose their shell, you only have, they start getting a hard skin in like an hour or 2 hours. By 12 hours, they got a hard shell again. So the fish kind of scour the bottom looking for those really soft, delicious treats.
What would be your number one bait that you would go for catching smallmouth? If you had to pick one lure out of everything out there for the whole season, what would be your go-to?
Oh, I absolutely love throwing marabou jigs. If I had to pick one thing, I like marabou jigs. They really make the smallmouth mad. They just attack them. They think they're a leech. They hit them and they stay hooked. Where big baits, big noisy baits are fun. A popper, whopper, plopper, spinner bait, all that stuff. Yeah, noisy, fun, keeps you interested. But that marabou, it zips them and they stay hooked. And some of the biggest fish in the lake get on them. But I have my rods that I roll through, and I roll through marabou on tough bites. I mean, if they're going to eat, I'm topwater all the way for sure if I know that they're on. So I'll use, like I said, any kind of topwater just to watch them go crazy on it. But I'll use wacky worms, kind of produce fish when nothing else will sometimes. Jerk baits are fun. They can throw them even if you put some different hooks and everything. But jerk baits get them riled up, and then you follow it up with a marabou in, different colors. Black has always been good, brown, pink. The feathers never stop moving. So you can even hold it still and they'll hit it.
It's interesting you mentioned that, because some of the best smallmouth bass fishermen in North America I've talked to, they all come up marabou jig. I mean, it is the answer, I think. It
is, and not always though, because I do have lakes over here that have nothing. You can't take a smallmouth. They have to be over 20 inches to harvest, and people really don't take them. But you still got to have the slack, because some people think bass are food, from where they come from when they're up visiting. So you got to have that. But those lakes have big bass and they get pressure. Well, marabou may not work there, but I can tell you what, a wacky worm is always going to work. And also using a Ned rig, really hard for me to throw something that looks like the leftover piece of a jig crawler. But I actually know where it came from. Ned Kitey, it was named after him. When he would do a jig worm and snip the top off, he saved all those tops and started fishing with them and just outfished everybody. And then he's down in Oklahoma. He wrote for In Fisherman. I've done some articles with him, and it's amazing what a simple thing will do. But you put that on a stand-up head, and it's rock and roll. And Ned rigs are just basically look like a cigar butt. They've called them TRDs for a reason.
Yeah.
But that Ned rig, it's crazy. I always think, like when I'm at the bass tournaments, here's a bunch of adults with really super expensive boats fishing for money, and they got that on their line. And I just get a chuckle out of it, but story after story, it gets their big fish or it just fills the bag. So the Ned rig is another one of those things. And so, all kinds of different little caveats on things can change things. Even Gussie, moping with a plastic fluke style bait, that's something I just can't get it to go here, but I could pitch it and use it real light with a weighted gamakatsu worm hook on a white fluke. Works really well. or
Yep.
even a paddle tail.
On a side note on the Ned rig thing is that, they catch walleyes too. One of the guys up here told me a couple of years ago he had somebody get in the boat and he offered to say, "Oh, we're throwing this," and the guy said, "No, I'm going to use my Ned rigs," and he outfished everybody in the boat that were fishing walleyes with, and he was throwing nothing but a Ned rig.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah,
that's just how it is. And I've caught them many times. And I don't do. I'm not a touring bass pro, but I jump in a few tournaments on the border there, just to chase around and catch smallmouth bass, an excuse to hit the throttle and go fast and hang out with some cool people. And but along the way, when you're bass fishing, I catch so many walleyes fishing for bass and pike up and over 40 inches, and even a muskie last year in the tournament. I got a 52-incher, pulled it up, gave it a measure by the side of the boat, and that's approximate. I don't want to mess around with them too much, but I wanted to measure them.
Yeah.
And you just don't know what you're going to catch because you're throwing stuff. It says bass tackle in a lot of the ads at these different shops, but it works for whatever bites.
Yeah.
And, so that's a key thing.
Well, folks, we need to take yet another break and hear from even more of the fine sponsors that bring this show to you every week. When we come back, we'll have the second part of that talk we had with BRO Brosdahl. So stay tuned. We'll be back right after these messages. Hey folks, come on over to Hayward Ace Hardware and check out the area's largest selection of firearms, ammo, and accessories. We carry top brands like Browning and Sig Sauer, and we have a great selection of the newest and hard-to-find models. We've got a large selection of ammo with more coming in daily. If you need a scope, we carry great brands like Leupold, Hawk, and EOTech, and we'll even mount it and bore-sight it for you too. We even sell suppressors and silencers. And don't forget to check out our Guns of the Week. Huge discounts on a variety of pistols, rifles, and shotguns that change every week. So stop on in to Hayward Ace Hardware, your firearms superstore. Hayward Ace Hardware, Highway 63 North in Hayward, or give us a call at 715-634-8700.
Hayward Animal Hospital is a full-service medical and surgical hospital featuring on-site laboratory, digital and dental x-ray, in-house pharmacy, and online store. Dr. Ostrander has 40 years of experience dealing with illnesses, injuries, surgery, and dentistry. Hayward Animal Hospital offers urgent care appointments and emergency surgery daily. Please call early in the day for these appointments. They open at 8 a.m. Hayward Animal Hospital is located 1 mile east of Hayward on Highway B. Call 715-634-8971.
Hey folks, the Log Cabin Store in Northwoods Beach on Highway K between the Big Lakes has groceries, ice, beer, liquor, and pop, and now has all new tackle and bait supplies. All current antiques and household items are now on sale and all must go to make room for the sport shop. That's at the Log Cabin Store in Northwoods Beach between the Big Lakes.
If you'd like to have your time fishing be more enjoyable and productive, hiring a fishing guide can be a good investment. Whether it's learning more about fish patterns throughout the year, learning how to use your depth finder to find the best spots and fish, learn how to use that GPS to get the most out of it, or learn better boat control. A day on the water with a guide can really help you to be a better angler as well as make a day on the lake very enjoyable. To book a guide trip this year or get more information, you can find us on the internet at www.wiscnorthlandoutdoors.com and then just click on Area Guides.
Welcome back to the last segment of this week's Wisconsin Northland Outdoors. And folks, we're going to jump right back into the second part of that talk we had with pro angler and fishing guide BRO Brosdahl talking bass fishing. Well, bro, the one thing I want to kind of get out there too is though that, the big mistake I see, when you're talking a Ned rig or you're talking a marabou jig or a hair jig, the one big mistake I see a lot of people make is they just fish it too aggressive and too fast. Either bait.
Absolutely. Yes, I agree. The Ned rig is painstaking. If you're actually in a tournament or you're fishing and you really want to get fish, it's hard because you got to let that thing just sit there and move it a little bit. And that's the thing is that's like the jig worm, eye candy jig worm, and designed for walleyes, eye candy. But I use that in a smallie tournament. It floats. So when you have a tungsten jig head, a little flat mushroom head, or a stand-up jig head, like a tungsten jig head, you could make that thing, you can wiggle it across the bottom, and you're making a walk on the head. And in a lot of times when the pressure's low, they'll just pick it up and your line's going sideways. You don't even feel a bite.
That's pretty much the same as just a little bit longer than a Ned, but the same as a Ned rig principle.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And but that floating bait makes a big difference in even in their the minnow forms. Everything floats. All eye candy float. The pan candy that's coming out, they have some samples over there in Park Falls at the St. Croix. A lot of them sold the pan candy because it was a limited release, and it all floats, and it's just soft and real mushy, so it really comes alive in the water.
Yeah, in just about anything. I mean, whether you're talking Z-Man stuff or anybody else, Rapala's got some stuff out there. If you want, if at all possible, the material, it's actually called TPE plastic. You don't want to mix it with your other plastic because it turns to glue, but that plastic will stand up. It floats, and the jig head stands up, tail up on the bottom when you're trying to work a Ned in, and that's your best part of your presentation, I think.
Absolutely, and I have a lot of little tricks I throw at everything all the time, but making it stand up there or just having something just pause for a second really gets a bass agitated, and every little thing adds up. And I still throw spinner baits. I'll have tandem spinner baits whenever I'm on rivers or rip-rappy shoreline. You can really wake up a bass fast. And then if I'm using topwaters, I'll oversize them because, if you're really looking for a kicker, that's the way to go. If you want numbers, go small in the topwaters. But I like to make a lot of noise, and you're there to disrupt them. And, of course, I've caught walleyes on topwaters, so I don't know what they were thinking.
I know, one of the things I look for is once we start getting into the past the spawn, and you start getting where you got some dragonflies starting to fly around out there eating your mosquitoes up. It seems like that's about the time you want to pull out the topwaters for sure, and you get a nice sunny flat day with very little wind, and in 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 feet of water, these smallies will be in there thick, and you can catch them, and it's a blast catching them on that topwater.
Oh, absolutely. Submergent glide baits are also good, and just twitching them, and it's a lot of work, but you really got to get it going. Either light twitches, but sometimes you have to wake them up. Make that minnow walk it in a spastic way where it's left, right, left, and just get that thing moving all over the place. And a really good submergent glide bait, if you pause for a second, it'll go for a ways and then just sit there in neutral. And sometimes just sitting there gets those fish to explode on it, or the next time you twitch it, they hit it. But one thing I found, the heavier the bait, the faster they can throw it.
Oh, yeah. So it's about the same thing with any type of a jerk bait or presentation. It seems like there's times when they'll go after it when it's just constantly ripping, but a big chunk of the time, it's the pause that gets them. I mean, that pause, and sometimes as the colder the water gets, the longer that pause needs to be between your twitches.
Oh, absolutely. And when you get into the Great Lakes, they got gobies there, and so anything plastics near the bottom, the Ned rig really kind of covers the goby, and other lakes, that Ned rig looks like crayfish, but, it doesn't have to be exactly that shape. It does look like a crayfish, and there's a lot of different sub-shapes coming out of that genre, but I tell you what, all the different plastics, a pig and jig still works for really big ones if you're on those light weed edges, and look at Easton there on Leech Lake. He was pitching up in 2 feet of water with micro stuff and sealed the deal on the qualifier.
Yeah. Well, bro, a lot of interesting stuff, great stuff. You want to let people out there know where they can follow you on social media and stuff, and interested stuff on your guide business?
Yeah, go to brosguideservice.com if you want to book a trip, or just watch the Bro Road Show. I'm there spring and fall, on the change of the seasons, and we talk about tips and tactics to catch fish.
You bet. Well, bro, thank you for coming on here.
Hey, thanks for having me, John. You have a great day.
Well, folks, we're about out of time for this week's show. I'd like to remind everyone out there that if you miss a show, go to our website at wnoradio.com. From there, you can link to our podcast site, and the show is also on Spotify and Google Podcasts every week. And also, if you're looking for information on vacationing and lodging here in the Hayward Lakes area, check out the Hayward Lakes Visitor and Convention Bureau website at haywardlakes.com. Thanks for listening, folks. We're out of time, and we'll be back again next week with another interesting show for you.
Listen with me, I'm gonna take you there to our Wisconsin outdoors, our Wisconsin outdoors.
This program has been produced and hosted entirely by Wisconsin Northland Outdoor Communications.